for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Hello, good morning to you. Thank you for your company. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. On the show tonight.
Trump is being strategic. He's looking beyond this year. He's looking beyond next year to what could happen for a battle in the Arctic.
Battle in the Arctic. That's what one of President Trump's cabinet members has said this morning over the acquiring of Greenland. Well, tonight, Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, has told the US President in a phone call that his 10% tariff on the UK is wrong. And breaking tonight, this just in, the PM is holding an emergency press conference at 9 a.m. this morning, later on today. Speaking of tariffs, meanwhile, this deal, this tariff, is a massive slapdown for the globalists from President Trump. This clip has gone a little bit viral online. It's upset all the right people, of course, but is it unpatriotic? That's what I want to know. To say I understood why President Trump was imposing tariffs. Not that I supported them, I just understood it. I'll be joined by someone who slammed me on social media and called GB News, this channel, a crude right-wing propaganda outlet. Don't miss it. On to more domestic matters.
This is a straightforward discussion. Would you actually use the word fascist about a Nigel Farage-led government or not?
I guess I would just say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in my experience, it usually is a duck.
Well, it's all quackers to me. That was another Labour cabinet member essentially calling reform fascists. They just don't get it, do they? And she's not the only one. Aha! Yep, Steve Coogan of Alan Partridge fame, has tonight said that Reform UK is anti-human rights, and he's also against the blowing up of Venezuelan cocaine boats. What is he on about? And the other bit of breaking news tonight is there's another defection to Reform UK. This man on your screen now, Andrew Rosendale from the Conservatives. UKIP's first MP, Douglas Carswell, joins me very shortly, and if you remember, he defected from the Tories to UKIP back in 2016. Elsewhere tonight, 21 dead in Spain after a high-speed train derailed and smashed into another oncoming train in southern Andalusia. The accident happened near Ademuz in Cordoba province, and the state broadcaster says 100 people have been seriously injured. We'll bring you all the latest very shortly. Elsewhere tonight, Princess Eugenie has apparently cut off contact from her disgraced father, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, of course, the formerly known Prince Andrew, over his Epstein controversy. I'll be joined by a top royal reporter who has all the inside information on that and more, including why Prince Harry won't be meeting up with his father, the King, this week when he's in the UK. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Hello, good morning. Hope you're well. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel. Tonight we have US politics reporter at the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill, and the senior researcher in border security and immigration, Simon Hankinson. And in London to take us through what's making the papers tomorrow, GB News contributor, comedian, superstar, Paul Cox. Hello, Paul. Nice to see you, mate.
How are you doing?
Right, moving on to our top story this morning. It's the big breaking news that there's another Conservative defection to reform. This time it's Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, Andrew Rosendale. Tonight he cited the Conservative Party's hypocritical position over the Chagos Islands as his reason for making the switch. And he said, quote, the failure of the Conservative Party, both when in government and in recently opposition, to actively hold the government to account on the issue of the Chagosian self-determination and the defence of British sovereignty, represents a clear red line for me. Let me know your thoughts on this latest defection. 7 MPs now for Reform UK. gbnews.com/your say. Are you concerned about the volume, the amount of Conservatives making their way to Reform? Although I will say, Andrew Rosendale is, in my eyes, one of the more genuine, more authentic Tory MPs to make the switch. Well, I'm joined now by the political editor at The Independent, David Maddox. David, good morning. Thanks for your company on this. What's your assessment of this defection?
Morning, Ben. Good to be on your show. Look, I think it's one of the least surprising defections of all. I think what was only surprising about it was it took so long. I mean, it's been kind of well known in Westminster that Andrew's been umming and ahhing about defecting really since the autumn. It is certainly true to say that Chagos and the kind of British former colonies are very close to Andrew's heart, but I think this is more of an excuse. I think it's bad news, worse news for the Conservatives than they're caring to admit to tonight. You know, this is a guy who's very well embedded in his community. He may not have been kind of a high-ranking minister and things like that in his 25 years, but he very much kind of represented the on-the-ground Tory, especially in the kind of Essex, East Anglia sort of area where they're really losing out to Reform. So I think Andrew going is not great news, but not a great surprise.
Just explain, please, for our viewers and listeners who may not be too familiar with Andrew Rosendale, what kind of guy is he? What kind of MP is he? I've met him personally in some social situations. He seems like a very nice chap. Why should Reform voters, do you think, be, in my eyes, this is my argument, less concerned with this Tory coming over than, say, Nadhim Zahawi?
I think he is. He's a proper Brexiteer in the sense that he's of that wing of the party. He's not of the kind of more liberal intellectual wing at all. He's always been a populist at heart before the term populist was used. I mean, as I say, he was kind of Mr. Romford. That's what people around here. I actually live just down the road from him. I know Andrew very well. I've been to Margaret Thatcher House a number of times for events he holds there. It's a popular spot. I wonder if he's going to get kicked out of that now. But it's this is somebody who is very much a kind of on the ground type Tory, very good at organising locally, quite popular, and
whilst I've got you on the line, on the blower, Keir Starmer has announced an emergency press conference tomorrow morning for 9 a.m. He's ripped up the schedule for the morning. It's about Greenland and the tariffs. What's going on here? What are you expecting him to say?
I think he's facing an impossible situation. I mean, the one thing he's got right, definitely in his time as Prime Minister, is that he's accepted that America is our most important ally. He's done his best to keep Donald Trump on side, but now we've got tariffs for actually supporting another ally, which is kind of weird because they're an American ally as well. It's all getting very confusing. And, the other side of this, and I wonder if it's going to end up being a kind of put up and shut up moment for Starmer, not just with Trump, but actually with some of the issues he has with his own cabinet and people challenging his leadership. It's going to be quite an interesting press conference, this one.
Yeah, it will be. I'll be asleep, unfortunately, but I'm sure I'll catch it later on Catch Up. For GB News viewers, you can watch it live on GB News. Indeed. David, thanks for your time. Really appreciate you staying up. David Maddox of The Independent, and we'll catch up shortly. Let's turn, of course, to what we were just talking about, Greenland, and the latest that Sir Keir Starmer has told President Trump on a phone call today that applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO is wrong. So I think the Prime Minister called President Trump today. He also called other European leaders. It comes, of course, after the US said the US President, rather, would slap a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the US from February the 1st, which would increase to 25% from June the 1st, until a deal is reached for Washington to purchase Greenland from Denmark. Well, earlier today, and by the way, this is the talk of the town here in the United States as well, not just the UK. Earlier today, Scott Bessent, America's Secretary of the Treasury, said this to Breakfast Television.
If we look for years, for over a century, American presidents have wanted to acquire Greenland, and what we can see is that Greenland is essential to the U.S. national security. We're building the Golden Dome, the missile system, and look, President Trump is being strategic. He's looking beyond this year. He's looking beyond next year to what could happen for a battle in the Arctic. We are not going to outsource our national security. We are not going to outsource our hemispheric security to other countries. In Trump 1.0, President Trump told the Europeans, do not build Nord Stream 2. Do not rely on Russian oil. And guess what, Kristen? Guess what is funding Russia's efforts against Ukraine? European purchases of Russian oil. So America has to be in control here.
Well, that was Scott Bessent there, the US Secretary of the Treasury. Joining me in Washington is my panel tonight, the US politics reporter at the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Hello, Victoria. And the senior researcher in border security and immigration, Simon Hankinson. Simon, hello. Right, ladies first, what do you make of this Greenland fiasco, this saga? It's turning into a bit of a drama, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting. So in my role at the Daily Mail, I primarily cover Capitol Hill. And so this has been one of the points of contention within Trump's own Republican Party. You have some individuals like Lisa Murkowski, of course, of Alaska. She's been very active on the front of Arctic politics, and she doesn't see, this going Trump's way. I actually remember going to an event actually about the Arctic Circle that she was a keynote at back in this summer, and she said that Trump could never buy Greenland, for the mineral costs. Like, this is something that he should kind of drop, and I think he kind of did, at least put it on the back burner for a couple months. And now folks like Murkowski, folks like you have Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina. He's not seeking re-election this year, but his seat is actually up, so that's another kind of interesting thing to watch. But just kind of seeing these other voices in the Republican Party that are kind of willing to stand up to Trump, of course, and actually Murkowski and Tillis were both in Greenland earlier this week.
So they're against it?
Yeah, they're against it. But then somebody who is backing Trump is Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. There was this piece in the Times today, an exclusive interview they had, because Johnson is actually speaking to the UK Parliament on Tuesday.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting. I know I'll be watching.
He's on. Mike Johnson is on Nigel Farage's show, I think, tomorrow. Well, later today. Sorry, it's Monday today, of course. Technically, 7 p.m. on GB News. So viewers and listeners can catch
he's
that.
Kind of doing the rounds there. But Johnson says we have no ill will for our friends in Greenland. So definitely a discussion that the Congress is having, kind of out for the open.
Okay, Simon, your take on this? I cannot see, and I put a bet out to the viewers last night. I said, give me any dare, any bet. I don't think we'll see a day ever when America takes over Greenland with hostile military intervention. Can you?
I'm with you on that. I'll take that bet. I feel like we've just sat down at the poker table, or if you play bridge, we're in the bidding part where everybody says what they might do, and in the end, they end up doing something completely different. That's kind of the way it is with Trump. He's a deal maker. He likes to throw out a position that is maybe his absolute, dream, and then later on, you see that he uses tactics to get what he wants. The goal here is the strategic value of Greenland, which is thawing out. It can be mined. It's needed for defense, and frankly, the Danes don't have the wherewithal to do it. So that's the goal. How he gets there, your guess is as good as mine.
So what is it about? Is it about strategic military sites? Is it about the opening passage between the Pacific and the Atlantic? Is it about the rare earth? Greenland, of course. Is it about all of it?
Yeah, I was going to say all of those things that you just mentioned that just happen to be coming to a head all at the same time. Plus, you've got a really aggressive China, which calls itself a near Arctic nation, which is ridiculous, and Russia, which is, as we see, expansionist. So this is all coming to a head under Trump, and maybe he wants to make this his legacy with this Golden Dome to secure the United States, a dream going back to the Reagan administration, Strategic Defense Initiative or Star Wars, to stop having to worry about nuclear weapons.
Yeah, of course, it's not the first time. I mean, there is some sort of rhetoric that this is President Trump's mad idea all off his own back. But I mean, I think the US has been trying to get its hands on Greenland since the 1800s with 4 or 5 separate occasions. Paul Cox is down the line. Paul, good morning. Thanks for your company. Nice to see you. What's the reaction in the UK been like since we heard that President Trump is threatening these 10% tariffs?
It seems to be split down the middle, really, and it doesn't always seem to be split down political lines. I'm a kind of akin to the sort of things you believe, Ben, and Alex Armstrong believes, and that's that I think the US is the superpower that Great Britain has to align itself with. Now, that isn't easy to stomach for a lot of people because a lot of people believe
treacherous.
Well, I don't believe so. And I don't believe so because since the end of World War II, we handed over that superpower to the US. Now, we have no choice. This is the sort of thing we used to do. And by the way, this is exactly the thing that Denmark did in order to get Greenland in the first place. There's nothing new under the sun here. What Donald Trump is doing, whether we like it or not, is strongmanning his way to the US maintaining its superpower prospects in the future. And it is squeamish to talk about it in that sense. But for many, 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 many years, all of the NATO countries have underfunded their defence budgets. They have. I mean, the UK alone is under 3%. Under 3% of our whole GDP is focused on defence. So if we have any defence issues, the first person we're going to go to at this moment in time is Donald Trump, i.e. the US. So he has every right to say...
I hear you.
He has every right to say, you need to be pulling your weight.
Yeah, I hear you, and I was only jesting when I called you a traitor and treacherous. That's what people have been saying to me on social media for the past 2 days, because I dare say that I understood President Trump's thinking. Not that I supported tariffs being slapped on my own countrymen and women, but that I understood it. But the point is, Paul, I think you and I are in a small pool of thought, because even the likes of Giorgia Meloni, the Italian premier, she came out today and said that she'd called President Trump and said, you're making a mistake. So even Trump's staunchest allies on the right in Europe are all saying, you've got this one wrong, mate, unfortunately.
So he may make a mistake, I believe, if he follows through with 10% tariffs. That could be a mistake, because what that would do is, irrespective of what he wants his allies to do, it could very much undermine all their economies. 10% across all of the economies there would be probably devastating to some degree. However, if by doing this strong man stuff he manages to pull them back into line, then haven't we got the outcome that we need?
Yeah, and also, I mean, for the record, I don't think he will go ahead with these tariffs anyway. The deadline is February the 1st, and I think you'll probably see the end of next week, maybe the start of the following week, him rowing back as he did with China. And as for military intervention, I mean, you'd have to be smoking something very strong to think that would happen. Paul, thank you very much. We'll catch up very shortly to go through the papers. gbnews.com/your say. Let us know your thoughts. Somebody has said, Ciara has said, Ben, it's Cordoba, not Cordoba. Your Spanish is awful, and you was only in Madrid the other month. You were only in Madrid the other month. It's a dreadful incident. My thoughts go out. Yes, 21 confirmed dead, unfortunately, in that rail crash. More on that as we get it. Apologies for my poor Spanish. Still ahead on the Late Show Live. This deal, this tariff, is a massive slapdown for the globalists from President Trump. Right, find out why that clip upset so many people. One of them is joining me live next on the channel. He thinks we're a right-wing propaganda outlet, and he's been calling for us to lose our licence since 2023. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say in just a tick. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's carry on with the subject of President Trump's tariff, shall we? Because yesterday I went viral inadvertently after saying this. This deal, this tariff, is a massive slapdown for the globalists from President Trump. I've been long of the argument, Alex, listeners and viewers, that President Trump, you know, for some of his faults and his bluster, and he's not perfect, so I'm not saying that, but to me it seems like he is the only person in the West at the moment trying to save the West from themselves. You've got Keir Starmer, who's selling off our own sovereign British territory overseas, and you've got the West generally not taking notice of warnings from the United States. There was a flurry of diplomatic cables which went out to European embassies, including the UK, some weeks ago about the future of Western civilization, warning that it could be under threat if European nations don't sort themselves out. Well, this is just the latest chapter of that. President Trump taking steps to not only secure America's future, but indeed at the same time the West as well. And at the moment, it only seems to be the Trump administration which understands what they're trying to do. Europe, yet some people in Britain even, not catching up to what's going on. That upsets a lot of people, including my next guest, Oliver Cam, who's a freelance journalist, formerly of The Times. He's also a well-respected author, who said this on X. He said, every economist knows tariffs reduce real incomes. Every sentient person knows these tariffs are the tantrum of a corrupt, seditious, racist thug. So inevitably, the crude right-wing propaganda channel GB News is awed by their sophistication. Ofcom, he said, should now revoke its licence. Well, Oliver joins me now. Oliver, good morning. Thank you for your company. Great to see you. First of all, you said on that tweet just there, 12, 13 hours ago, you said serious people shouldn't appear on this channel, but here you are. So what's changed? Are you no longer serious, Oliver?
I admire your wry sense of humour. When GB News, which you describe as Britain's news channel, and yet you're neither a news channel, you're rather a propaganda outlet, and judging by your tweets, you're not pro-British at all, you're unpatriotic and anti-British. When you were launched, whenever it was, I took a self-denying ordinance. I was invited to appear on the channel. I decided against it, not because I'm particularly fastidious, but because I wanted to make a point that I don't think a propaganda channel should be treated as some sort of reputable news outlet. But I made a point in that tweet about people in public service. I don't speak for anyone, I don't represent anyone but myself. I've appeared once on GB News before when you made a particularly pernicious news story out of a genuine news item concerning languages in primary schools in English in England and Wales, and language is one of my subjects.
It wasn't with me.
And now I'm here because you asked me to, and because I thought your tweet was preposterous and xenophobic. So does that answer your question?
Great. Okay. Well, good. Yes, thank you. Good to see you are still a serious person, because that's very important that you're considered serious. Well, that said, if we're a propaganda channel, Oliver, what kind of propaganda outlet would invite its critics to come on and say that, whilst you also call for the revocation of our licence since 2023. So let me just go back to it. So September 2023, you said, GB News repeatedly flouts the requirements for due impartiality stipulated in the broadcasting code. Ofcom should revoke its licence. You said the same thing on Christmas Eve 2024. November 25, you said it's a right-wing propaganda channel. Let's see it compete properly in the marketplace. I think we've done that. November 25, last year, the same year, you said obviously not a news outlet in any recognised sense. It's a crude propaganda outlet. You said it in December that Ofcom should strip our licence. You seem to be fairly obsessed with us going off air, but I ask you, Oliver, what kind of propaganda outlet allows its critics on air to say this kind of stuff? Doesn't sound like a propaganda outlet to me.
I think you're being a little selective in your choice of tweets. I've been far more extensive in my call for the regulator to rescind your licence than that. I don't recall when GB
Well, answer the
News
question.
was
What
launched.
kind of propaganda outlet allows you, Oliver, on air to say we should be taken off air?
I didn't say you should be taken off air. I said that the regulator should rescind your licence. There's a clear distinction between
Well,
the two.
take us off air. You know what that means.
It means you should go to
Please answer
streaming.
the initial question.
I'm glad to answer your initial question, but let me correct your misapprehension before I do so. There's a distinction between being taken off air and having your broadcast licence revoked, as the regulator rightly did with the propaganda channel Russia Today, when the regime that you seem to be an apologist for invaded Ukraine. Now, in answer to your question directly...
You've still not answered the question, Oliver. Come on, this is your chance to answer the question. What kind of propaganda outlet allows its critics on air to say we should be shut down?
I'm happy to answer your question if you give me the time to answer it, rather than interrupt me with your rather unlettered interpolations. The type of propaganda channel that you are will, evidently aware of your flagrant breach serially of the requirements of the broadcasting code, will invite a critic on as a piece of window dressing in order to purport to be some sort of genuine, to offer some sort of genuine venue for debate. That's not the case with you. You're a propaganda outlet. You are... I've always compared you to Russia Today, with the caveat that you're not actually sponsored by a terrorist state. But in the case of GB News, you have become not just a mouthpiece, but a megaphone for a rogue regime based in Washington, D.C. And that, I think, takes us beyond your previous record.
How many breaches have we had last year, Oliver, for due impartiality?
I see your breaches of due impartiality constantly. You have no idea what journalistic ethics are.
Well, you're not the regulator, so how many
are.
breaches, Oliver, has Ofcom slapped us with in the past year, for example, let's say the year, for due impartiality breaches?
You can't ask me to be a spokesperson for Ofcom. Ofcom is failing in its duty to crack down on
Oliver,
you.
with respect, you're coming onto the show saying we constantly breach Ofcom licence rules and that's why we should have our licence taken off us. I'm asking you a very simple premise. How many Ofcom and due impartiality breaches have we had in the last 12 months? You should know. You're an expert on this subject of stripping GB News of its licence.
No, you're making that up. I'm giving you my opinion as an objective observer that GB News is not a proper outfit to hold a UK broadcast licence. You are as much a propaganda outfit as Russia Today, with the same adherence to ethics and journalistic objectivity, and I can't help it if the regulator is falling down on its job. I called for Russia Today to have its licence stripped as soon as it came on air in the UK, because it obviously wasn't a proper and fit holder of that licence, and the same is true with you.
OK, well, the answer to the question was, as you probably know, if you don't, you know now, was 0 breaches. So we are adhering to Ofcom's rules.
Because the regulator is falling down on its job.
Okay, so you know better than the regulator. Got it. The comparison with Russia Today, by the way, Oliver, is Russia Today was funded by the state. It was funded by the Kremlin. We are, as you attested to in your tweets recently, we are in the marketplace. We have to come onto where we offer a product to our viewers, and our viewers decide whether they tune in. And there's a reason we're the UK's #1 news channel for the past 6 or 7 months. So we're not funded by the state. We have to fund our own activities with membership, with advertising and so on. So there's a distinct difference.
A benefactor, as you well know.
But it's not the state, is it? It's not the UK government.
I
That's
did
my
not
point.
say you were state-funded. I specifically excluded you from that comparison. The point of comparison is that you are a megaphone for an increasingly depraved autocratic regime that happens to have had a direct election. That's the sole difference between you and Russia Today, so far as I can see.
Okay, Oliver, I did some. I mean, you're talking about us being a propaganda outlet and that, you know, calling the Trump administration depraved. I understand you're not a fan.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I did some of my own research. Sorry?
Yeah, tell me about it. Go on.
Yeah, I did some of my own research into the kind of topics that you like to talk about.
Yeah, well, that sounds ominous. You did your own research, but please go on.
I did. I know you're a serious person, so you like research. I asked Grok AI to show me how many tweets you'd made about Labour failing to tackle illegal migration. Any guesses?
I'm very much in favour of immigration, and I think that the sort of demagoguery that GB News engages in to insinuate that people who come to this country, sometimes by irregular routes, are a threat is extremely irresponsible.
All right,
I'm pretty
I asked
close to that
Grok AI
position,
to tell me
yes.
how many tweets you've made about the Chagossians wanting to return to their homeland. You've been very vocal about President Trump and Greenland and the fact that the future of the Greenlanders are down to the Greenlanders alone. I asked Grok how many tweets you'd made about Chagos and the Chagossians. Any guesses, Oliver, how many you'd made in recent years?
You know, I could be listening to Jeremy Corbyn being asked about repression in Iran.
It's none, isn't it, Oliver? It's none.
Your tendency to whataboutery is off the scale, and I regard that with a fair degree of contempt.
I'm highlighting the hypocrisy, Oliver. You're meant to be a serious person, so I would have thought somebody who's got concern about the future of native people on their sovereign land would have maybe talked about the Chagossians. Let's do one more.
Yeah, I've done that.
Grok AI to show me tweets, to show me your tweets about illegal migrants sexually assaulting British women and girls. How many tweets do you think you made about that?
Oh, come off it. You are engaging in demagoguery of a peculiarly unpleasant xenophobic character while attempting to present yourself as a defender of women's rights. If you have a serious question, ask it, but you know, it's in the early morning here. I haven't got time for this, and I could be doing something else.
Okay. Well, look, I appreciate you being on. Thank you. I will just say you wouldn't get this on the BBC. You wouldn't get this anywhere else. Could you imagine the BBC inviting somebody from Defund the BBC organisation on to have a debate and a discussion about what your problem is with GB News? It just wouldn't happen. You know that as well, Oliver.
The BBC is a serious channel. You're just a propaganda outlet speaking for a depraved regime.
Oh, they're very serious, aren't they? When they splice a president's speeches up, they report fake news about Israel bombing hospitals when it was Hamas rockets. They're a very serious outfit, aren't they? In fact, you're very serious as well, so I'll leave you to it to turn on the BBC News channel. Oliver, thank you for your company. Appreciate it. Good night to you. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Well, lots of you enjoying that. 200 comments on your say. My panel here now, Victoria Churchill, Simon. That was good fun. Simon, your thoughts on that?
Look, I always hate it when it gets ad hominem because we don't get anywhere. We don't discuss anything. He's just attacking the station rather than, you know, talking about the issues. And as you say, he's had strong opinions about various things. I go on anyone who asks me. I've got the BBC's asked me 3 times, never one time came through. I'm going to be on the Observer's podcast. These are left-wing outlets. They ask me questions. I enjoy answering them. So I think it's great that you guys have people on who oppose you, and I think he's wrong.
Victoria?
Yeah, I'm like that. I'll go on just about anybody that asks. I mean, on the issue of Israel, for example, I'm quite defensive of Israel in a lot of my rhetoric, and I'll go on Al Jazeera, even though they're probably one of the most critical of Israel outlets. So I'll go on a lot of Middle Eastern outlets. I've been on BBC a couple times as well. Also been ditched by them a couple times as well, Simon. So maybe it's not just
okay.
me. But yeah, I think this channel, at least with you, Ben, I've seen you invite people that vehemently disagree with you, and I've seen you have conversations. I've seen you go viral, with that gender doctor. So I think the place of news is to have conversations, particularly on a show like this, and I think you guys do a good job.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think the difference is, beyond us inviting people who don't agree with us onto the shows, the difference is a lot of the time these people, they're actually quite, I feel, anyway, this is my opinion, I feel they're quite venomous in their approach to debating. I don't have a problem with Oliver Cam. I think he's probably quite a nice guy in his spare time. I just disagree with him politically. But I think a lot of the left seem to have this sort of nasty streak about them where they think they're better than other people simply because we don't agree with them. Lots of you on your say commenting. Colin said, go away to the real propaganda channel, Sky News and the BBC. GB News is brilliant and their presenters. This is an insult to our intelligence. I'll just say as well, before I go to Paul Cox. Actually, Paul, hello. Are you still down the line? I'll just say, disagree with GB News, say what you want about GB News, but to call us a propaganda outlet, no propaganda outlet would allow somebody on to call them out and call for their licence to be stripped.
No, by the way, Ben, that was delicious. I mean, just take that last 5 to 10 minute interview with Oliver Calm and just keep playing it once a day. Just play it once a day and it will tell our whole audience why we exist and why we have to exist. I don't know Oliver for Adam, like you say, fair play to him for coming on, but the sneering attitude that Oliver represents from the left that says we know best and you are horrible people is exactly why GB News is succeeding. It's not because of propaganda, it's because there's a direct reaction to that attitude. Look, this could be a propaganda channel for all I know, Ben. I've been on it for 3.5 years. At no point has anyone ever told me what to say, ever. In fact, nobody has ever told me what not to say, ever. That is not propaganda. Propaganda is saying you must follow this very tight track of view. Now, you could argue that my view of the world happens to coincidentally align with yours, Ben, but it is a coincidence. I've had my eyes opened. Oliver Calm and that type of journalist is exactly why people love GB News. It was magnificent in its advertising abilities for this channel. Look, thank you, Oliver, for coming on, but you basically just helped me pay my mortgage for the next year. That was sublime.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in for 2 seconds. I think one thing that, regardless of where you are on the political right, regardless of country, one thing that we all have in common is that we like to see the free market succeed. And I think your all's ratings over the last year show that when you have people that can make choices in a competitive marketplace, they've chosen this time and time again, week after week, year after year, month after month. And I think, regardless of where people are on the left, they like to infringe upon free market rights. And I think that in itself, they want to get big government involved in the free market, which is the last thing that you should be wanting to do.
Yeah, and let's be honest, people were calling for GB News to be shut down before GB News even aired a minute of broadcast in the months and probably a year or so before it went to air. There was campaigns to rally advertisers to stop advertising with us. This is the only channel, and I'm not just saying to take a victory lap, this is the only channel where you would get something like that, where we invite somebody on who wants us shut down to open their ideas in public. It's all perspectives. I respect other people's opinions. I get the feeling that certain sects of the left don't respect not just other opinions but other people genuinely as human beings either. I think that's the key difference between the so-called left and the right. Actually, the left and the right doesn't really exist anymore in my mind. It's kind of just like, it's just right or wrong. But anyway, gbnews.com/your say. Paul, thank you. Stay on the line. I think we're doing the papers in just a sec. Coming up next on The Late Show Live.
Do you regret the whole friendship with Epstein?
No, still not.
Well, he'll be sweating tonight because things keep getting worse for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as, sadly, and this is a sad story, his youngest daughter, Princess Eugenie, has reportedly cut all ties with her disgraced father. We're getting stuck into that and Prince Harry in just a tick on The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. Let's get some royal news, shall we? Because sources close to Princess Eugenie say that she's cut off contact with her father, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly of Prince Andrew fame, amid the continuing fallout from his links to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. So the disgraced royal Andrew, he was stripped of his titles last October and is said to be deeply affected by the breakdown in his relationship with his youngest daughter, as any father would. I actually do feel quite sorry for him on that front. Sources say Eugenie didn't visit Andrew over Christmas and has since ceased all communication with him. Eugenie, who co-founded the Anti-Slavery Collective, it's basically a human trafficking charity, anti-human trafficking, is reportedly taking a hard line over her father's refusal to apologise to Epstein's victims. Meanwhile, I think her older sister Beatrice is still keeping some sort of line of contact. With me now is the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, great to see you. Thank you for staying up with us. Am I bad for saying I feel sorry for for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor here as a father?
Well, it's such an interesting way of putting it, because I'm starting to hear more and more kind of whispers coming out of the royal circles that the mood is kind of changing in the palace, and Anne and Edward particularly feel that the king has gone too far. And actually there's some kind of whisper that Anne and King Charles have really quite fallen out over this. You know, they haven't stopped speaking to each other, but Anne is kind of on Team Andrew, saying, look, the man has got literally nothing left. You know, we know he had his guns taken away from him. I was on your show, I think, talking about this, which, you know, it does sort of imply that people are worried about his mental health and don't want him to be in a house with guns. And now what we find out is that he's not even speaking to Eugenie or her children. And I know that his grandchildren are pretty much, for years now, really, have been all he's got left. You know, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't work, he doesn't do events. He doesn't cut ribbons, but he is apparently quite a good grandfather and dotes on his grandchildren. But with Eugenie, particularly in the run-up to Christmas, there was absolutely silence between them. And, you know, he's not seeing the grandchildren. And Anne and Edward are now starting to worry about him. And as you say, feel a little bit sorry for him.
And why is Beatrice keeping that line of contact? And just explain, I read, I think it was your article, wasn't it? Forgive me. I read the detail about how Beatrice is trying to keep in contact, but also being a bit wary of the royal family as well and keeping the link. Why is Beatrice more open to having that connection with her dad still?
Well, all along, ever since the Newsnight interview, Beatrice has been a little bit more, I don't know, she's just been a bit more forgiving, really, of her father. There's no really other way of putting it. And she very much encouraged him to do that Newsnight interview. And, you know, afterwards, when he famously said, oh, I thought that went rather well, she was one of the voices, you know, in the background saying, that was brilliant, Daddy, well done. Eugenie, she's a little bit more down to earth. I've met her a few times. She's a lot more non-royal, if that makes any sense, and a little less clueless. I hate to say it, but Beatrice is a little bit more, she's in awe of her father, and a lot of girls are. But Eugenie is a little bit more real. Grounded in Reality, as we know, works with the Anti-Slavery Collective. And she's just said, you know, I just want no part of this, from what I gather. She lives in Portugal with her children who go to a Portuguese school. They all speak Portuguese. They all kind of have this other life, so far removed from royal life in London and the UK and Windsor. Whereas Beatrice is right in it, right in the middle of it. You know, she lives very close to Windsor. She has her mum staying with her at the moment, I believe. She has a lot of her mum's stuff at her house. She still remains close with her father. And her husband, Edo Mapele Mosey, is very close with her dad. I think they have kind of property. They both have a shared interest in property. And for some reason or another, the two girls are just a little bit on different sides of the coin, really, when it comes to all of this, although the two girls themselves remain close. And the proof of this was just before Christmas, Beatrice's daughter was christened, and Andrew was indeed invited to attend. I just don't know if there was a big family event in Eugenie's life at the moment whether Prince Andrew would, the former Prince Andrew would be invited to attend.
Yeah, got it. Just before I let you go, Charlotte, just tell us about Prince Harry. What's going on tomorrow?
Well, Harry's in the UK. We're going to see him pictured this week, but he's going to cut a very lonely figure because he's got no Meghan. He's not seeing the King. He's not seeing his brother William. I don't even think he's seeing Eugenie or any of the other cousins. And he hasn't got his security yet. So he'll be making this court appearance, possibly being pictured with Elton John. But, you know, other than that, not really, nothing royal going on. You won't see any imagery of him going to Clarence House. In fact, the royals, William and the King, are going to Scotland. But I think it looks really like to get away from him, to be honest.
Oh, I was about to say poor Harry. I'm in a really forgiving mood. I know Harry has been treacherous, and Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has, you know, behaved badly when it comes to lying, at least. I know he denies all allegations with regards to Epstein, but I mean, just from a human perspective, I do kind of feel sorry for them. I mean, I don't know. Charlotte, thank you so much. Appreciate your company, and we'll catch up soon. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live. We'll be going through the front pages on tomorrow's papers. Paul Cox is down the line. There's some interesting ones, not least Keir Starmer with an emergency press conference at 9 a.m. later today on Monday to do with Greenland. What will he say that he's not really said already? He said that he phoned President Trump today. He called it a mistake. They released that joint statement with the other European members as well. The front page of the Mail says that NATO is now heading for disaster in the Trump row, and the EU on the front page of the Guardian is weighing up a €93 billion retaliation for Trump's Greenland blackmail, as they call it. Back in just a tick on the Late Show Live.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the Late Show Live. One comment on your say amongst the flurry that have come in. Thank you for those, by the way. I will get to them. But one's caught my eye from Boko Thistleworth. Hello, good morning, Boko. You said this show at 2 hours is a bit short. I think it ought to be on until 6 a.m. Don't think so, Boko. Don't think so. Not without a lot of coffee and something else. Maybe some Red Bull. Other brands are available. Right, let's go through the front pages of tomorrow's papers with Paul Cox. Paul, good morning to you. Should we look at the Guardian, Paul, if we must? The EU is weighing up a €93 billion retaliation for Trump's Greenland blackmail. Yeah, sounds like a pretty hefty retaliation.
Well, yes, 93 billion is a lot of money, Ben, and that would be quite the retaliation. Look, I don't know where they believe that will take them. I think the whole problem with the tariff thing, and by the way, I've always kind of stood on the outside of the tariff argument. I'm not sure what Donald Trump's ever tried. I know what he's tried to achieve. I don't know if it's actually achieved the things he would hope. He would argue that it has. It's certainly a good lever to pull if you want Europe to sit up and pay attention, which is exactly what they're doing here. But them going tit for tat with Donald Trump is not going to do them any favours whatsoever. The only thing that's going to do Europe any favours, particularly the NATO members, is actually taking Donald Trump seriously, investing in their own defence and helping the rest of the Western world by getting behind the US. Now, I know it's difficult for people to accept this, but we have, and I keep saying this, we have to align ourselves with the US. The US is our ally, not at any cost. Don't believe the rhetoric. There's no fascism going on here. This isn't 1930s Germany. What Donald Trump is trying to do is preserve the West for the future, because if he doesn't and nobody else does, then it's going to die and our future is entirely out of our hands.
I don't know, Paul. You sound like an unpatriotic Nazi stormtrooper to me.
Thank you, Ben.
I don't know. Can we look at something very quickly from Zia Yusuf? He tweeted earlier today about the fact that he wouldn't want to be friends with people of the opposing political persuasion. He said, as someone who entered politics 18 months ago, I've been shocked at just how pally and cosy politicians from legacy parties are with each other in media green rooms in the television studios. It's telling. They laugh at how ill-informed they think voters are, they catch up like friends, then they go on panels and pretend to oppose each other. It's why nothing changes whether people vote Tory or Labour. They're globalists, open borders, Britain-hating traitors. Simon, this tweet, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's gone viral, more than 1 million views on X. I mean, really, we were just talking about it with that Oliver Kahn chap. Should we be able to be friends with people from different parties, of different political persuasions? Because Zia Yusuf doesn't think so.
Yeah, I want us to be friends, but at the end of the day, we get into the arena, we got to fight. And I've been pretty disgusted by the way the Conservative Party carried on the policies of the Blair government to keep Britain's borders open, to keep mass migration going in the teeth of public opposition, I would say. The Chego silence, there are a variety of it's like a uniparty in many respects, and we don't need that. In politics, you need at least two parties with different ideas so people get to choose.
Victoria, have you got many mates from the Democratic Party?
A few. I think I've definitely dialed down the amount that I have, but I do have a few that I keep up with. And, you know, I just want to speak to, you know, the idea of the green rooms in the shows. I think that it makes for a better show when you can be cordial, at least behind the scenes, with, you know, members of the opposing party. But, you know, also I think that it is good to have, I think actually the UK does better at this than the US, right? Because in the US we have Democrats and the Republicans, and there's kind of really no, at least, letter that you can have next to your name that differentiates you. You know, of course, you have like your MAGA Republicans and your Socialist Democrats. There's kind of some conversations whether, you know, maybe we should have four parties. We should have the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, Democrats, Socialist Democrats. Yeah. But all those deviations are within the party, and I think here you guys actually can kind of build these broad coalitions like a lot of other countries.
Yeah, Paul, I wouldn't be mates with you if you didn't agree with me politically, so just putting that out there.
I'd always be mates with you, Ben. You're too good looking not to be mates with. I mean, Zia Yusuf does make a good point with regards to the green rooms. There are...
Very quickly.
Yeah, OK. What goes on in the green room is just humans, people being humans. We try to be decent to one another, and when we share our opinions, you know, the nails come out sometimes.
Thanks, Paul. We'll be back in just a tick with more headlines, including the World Cup being boycotted, apparently. Back in a tick.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Another cloudy day to come, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, but there will be some sunshine around too, and temperatures near average but mild in the south once more. So we have two bands of weather bringing rain, so cloud and rain across Northern Ireland, western Scotland this morning, and another one affecting much of England and Wales, giving some low cloud, misty, murky conditions through the day, outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But in between these, there is some sunnier breaks, parts of Scotland, western fringes of England and Wales, and perhaps even southeast England seeing some sunnier breaks too, and temperatures generally similar to recent days between 7 and 9 degrees. Into the evening time, those weather bands not really going very far. So central parts of Scotland, a dry end to the day, but turning quite chilly under clear skies. To the east and west, rather cloudy with some patchy rain, and those bands of cloud and rain stretching south into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, so a cloudy end to the day here. Much of the rest of England and Wales also cloudy, rain and drizzle, hill fog in places, but a few cloud breaks from time to time through the evening. And very little changes overnight as well. We may start to see the bands of cloud pushing a little further north and eastwards as we go through the night, allowing some clearer spells towards parts of Wales and the West Country ahead of the next weather system, which starts to come in for Tuesday. So temperatures under the cloud holding up 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees. Any clearer spells a little lower, but most of us frost-free to start Tuesday. The weather systems move out the way into the North Sea as we go through Tuesday morning, allowing it to become a little dry and brighter for a time. But another weather system bringing cloud and rain and stronger winds to Northern Ireland, western fringes of southwest England and Wales as we move through into the afternoon. Elsewhere, generally dry, a little breezy, but some sunnier spells and temperatures once more up to around 10 or 11 degrees.
Today, Clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the
because
failure is-
you're
the failure is-
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for your company. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. On the show tonight.
This is a straightforward discussion. Would you actually use the word fascist about a Nigel Farage-led government or not?
I guess I would just say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in my experience, it usually is a duck.
Oh dear, that was another Labour cabinet member essentially calling reform fascist. They just don't seem to get it yet, do they? And she's not the only one. Steve Coogan of Alan Partridge fame has tonight said Reform UK is anti-human and he's got a big problem with blowing up Venezuelan drug boats packed full of cocaine. I wonder why. What is he on about? And the other bit of breaking news tonight is that there's another defection to Reform UK. This time it's the, I'd argue, the high-grade Tory MP, Andrew Rosendale, from the Conservatives. UKIP's first MP, Douglas Carswell, joins me live to discuss this in just a second. If you remember, he defected from the Tories to UKIP way back in 2016. The OG defector, if you will. Also tonight, 21 dead in Spain after a high-speed train derailed and smashed into another oncoming train in southern Andalusia. The state broadcaster in Spain says 100 people have been injured, 25 seriously. We'll bring you the latest on that accident as we get it. Also tonight, could there really be a boycott of the World Cup in North America this summer, particularly the USA? I'll speak to a rather vocal opposition of the tournament because, well, quite frankly, they don't like President Trump. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks this hour. And joining me in Washington DC tonight is my panel, Victoria Churchill and Simon Hankinson, and to go through the papers tomorrow, live from London, back home in the beautiful capital city in Blighty, is Paul Cox. Not so beautiful. Just joking, Paul, you're looking absolutely sterling. Right, sorry, Paul.
Who's the comedian? Is it your
I'm always so mean to Paul, I don't know why, sorry. We are friends, really. Right, let's move on. The Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, has slammed Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, and suggested he would be a fascist Prime Minister. Yes, a fascist. In an interview with Sky News, Nandy said this.
There's a straightforward discussion. Would you actually use the word fascist about a Nigel Farage-led government or not?
I guess I would just say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in my experience, it usually is a duck.
Well, if that wasn't enough, Alan Partridge star Steve Coogan has said today in an interview with The Big Issue, he said, "I'm very troubled by the notion of what's acceptable behaviour in terms of conflict by both what's been happening in Gaza and these military attacks by the US on the boats and killing defenceless people and somehow trying to reframe that." So he's talking about the Venezuelan boats. So I am worried about the erosion of human rights and viewing the idea of human rights as some sort of impediment, and how Reform are anti-human rights because they think it's some red tape bureaucracy. Their comments, Coogan's and Nandy's, it comes as opinion polls continue to suggest that Reform UK are indeed on course to win the next general election. And the MP for Romford, Andrew Rosendale, defected to the party tonight, of course, from the Tories. I will say, although Reform have been smashing every poll for the past, 13 months or so, 70-odd national polls, maybe more, there is still a long way to go until the election. With me now is the former UKIP and Conservative MP, Douglas Carswell. Good morning, Douglas. Thanks for your company. I guess, as I just described in the introduction, you are the OG high-profile defector, Tories to the UKIP back in 2016. What do you make of Rosendale's defection and indeed the wider influx of Tories now making their way to Reform? Is that an issue, do you think?
It's not great news for the Conservatives, and one of the reasons why I think it's really bad. Andrew Rosendale was a sort of a totemic MP in 2001. He won in Romford at a time when many Conservatives felt they couldn't win. He was very, very good and very, very effective at reaching out to voters who had given up on the Conservatives. So for Andrew to give up on the Conservatives now, it's pretty grim news.
What do you make of the influx of Tories? There are some concerns from Reform voters saying, look, if we wanted to vote Tory, we would have just stuck with the Tories from yesteryear. Is there a real argument that Reform is at risk of welcoming too many failed politicians of the past?
Well, it's interesting. Farage seems to have said that there's a deadline. He doesn't want Reform to basically become a second chance lifeboat for failed Tory politicians. And I think it's probably quite important that he sets a deadline. But equally, there's some very talented people in the Conservative Party. There are some very capable people like Andrew Rosendale, like Robert Jenrick. Look, at some point, if you think that Britain needs to be saved, if Britain needs to be rescued from the current disastrous condition of the country, the right is going to have to come together. So, it's great to see Reform doing well, but fundamentally, I think we need an alternative to the left, and that's probably at some point going to mean Reform and the Conservatives at some point either coming together by one lot joining Reform or some kind of deal. But right now, clearly Reform has the momentum.
Do you think there's they've got the momentum, yes. Do you think there's a chance that they've peaked? There were some whispers from, I can't remember, was it Farage directly or maybe somebody close to him who said that they feared they may have peaked?
I think there's going to be ups and downs, but they've sustained a pretty significant lead for, 8 or 9 months now. I wouldn't worry too much. There will be times when, that polling lead narrows. But overall, I just don't see the Conservatives forming a credible opposition right now. They're very hesitant to do and say the things that need to be done and said to rescue the country. Now, that may change. But one of the reasons why I think Robert Jenrick's defection to Reform is so significant is if the Conservatives were going to rise to the occasion, I think it would have been because people like Robert Jenrick were leading it. That's obviously not going to happen now. And I think that more or less makes it, it's difficult to see how Kemi Badenoch is going to compete effectively with Nigel Farage's Reform Party now.
I guess on the flip side, though, she has improved at the ballot box. She's kind of been a bit more coherent in the last 4 or 5 months, and maybe the argument is that's why Jenrick defected anyway in the first place, because he wanted to be leader of the Tories. He saw that Kemi was pulling her socks up and thought, well, I'm done with this, I'll just go to Reform.
I'm not really, I'm 4,000 miles away from what's happening in Westminster, so I'm not really the person to talk to about this. But I suspect that actually this idea that somehow Kemi Badenoch is, suddenly found a second wind and is improving her performance, this is all Westminster bubble talk. It just doesn't really seem to be reflected in the polls. I just don't really think that after nearly a year in the job, there's any sign that she's putting together a credible alternative. Whereas I think people like Danny Kruger and James Orr in Reform are putting together a credible alternative. So I think the issue really is, what does Britain need to do to fix the mess it's in? Britain has been let down by successive governments for 20 years now. It needs fundamental reform. I have to say, Danny Kruger and Nigel Farage seem to be the only people in British politics that are addressing some of the fundamental problems that the country faces. I think the Conservative Party is just too reticent, too reluctant. They haven't committed clearly to undoing all the human rights nonsense. They haven't committed clearly to coming out of the various international treaties so that we can stop the boats. They're too reluctant. And frankly, I don't think Britain has time to wait for a bunch of centrist dads in the Tory party to accept that what they did on everything from climate change to immigration was wrong. The country just doesn't have time for that. So I think that's fundamentally why the Conservative Party is in such dire straits.
Well, I would say as well, just on that point, I mean, Zahawi's defection to Reform was fairly underwhelming, that he was one of those climate change zealots, the net zero zealots, and he's now in the ranks. Just before I let you go, Douglas, you've been familiar, friends, colleagues with Farage since 2016, a long time. How has he changed since 2016? And also, I'll ask another question just whilst I'm here yapping away. What do you make of Lisa Nandy's comments about calling him a fascist?
Lisa Nandy, we often talk about the full caliber of British politicians, and I think Lisa Nandy personifies that decline in ability. There she is talking about Farage and Reform and implying somehow that they are fascistic. Look, it's her party that is cancelling elections. It's her party that wants to abolish trial by jury. It's her party that has introduced reforms to UK law that now basically treat people differently based on their race and their ethnicity. It's extraordinary that she uses such inflammatory language given the track record of her own party. So I think the less we hear from Lisa Nandy, the better. But fundamentally, I think that Reform it's for Reform to lose the next election. They're in a very strong position, and Nigel, unlike when I joined UKIP back in 2014, 2015, he now has a team around him. He doesn't just have Danny Kruger and James Orr. He's got people like Robert Jenrick. People, a team is beginning to emerge around him, and I think that bodes very well. If you remember what it was like a decade ago, Nigel was a one-man band then. He's not now, and I think he's certainly got the chance now to, I think, become the next Prime Minister.
Yeah, I remember when I was a young local newspaper reporter, maybe 16, 17 years ago. Farage rocked up at my local newspaper. I was expecting him to come in, a fairly decent car. Anyway, he rocked up in a clapped out, I think it was an old Volvo, which, the wheels were almost falling off, and he was going to Hove Town Hall in Sussex to give a speech, and there was a baying crowd of leftists. Even back in the day, that was still going on. But yeah, he's come a long way. Douglas, thanks very much. I think you're in Mississippi, aren't you, which has got a GDP higher than the UK, I think.
Yeah, Mississippi's per capita GDP has now overtaken the UK. Last year, household income grew by about 4%. We've not had that level of growth in Britain in many a decade. So Mississippi is on the up, and if Britain really wanted to grow, they could learn from the United States, particularly from the southern states like Mississippi.
Yeah, but Rachel Reeves is fixing the foundations, and she was an economist at the Bank of England, Douglas, so at least says that. Douglas, thanks for your time, appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Cheers. Joining me in Washington is my panel, Victoria Churchill, Simon Hankinson. So much to go through there. Simon, these accusations of fascist and so on towards political figures and parties, does it stick anymore?
It's not serious. I mean, the two hardest things to define in political science for me are terrorism and fascism. Communism is easy, right? Take the means of production, state owns everything. It's just a label they throw at people, and the more you throw it, the less it sticks. It's like calling someone a racist or a homophobe or a transphobe, you know, unless you got the details to back it up, and that's just not a serious claim. The Reform Party is offering some policy solutions that people want, and that's why they're attracting not only voters, but high-level politicians like Jenrick, who was here in the U.S. Not so long ago. I got to meet him. He's a smart guy. This is not a B-lister. This is an A-lister who could make a big difference to that party.
Yes, although there is a big concern, Victoria. I'm not sure how much you know. Do you know Robert Jenrick? Have you heard of him?
Just slightly. Just
today. Okay.
Days, yeah.
I mean, there is a concern about this sort of swathe of ex-Tories going to reform. Somebody accusing Jenrick today of being a Trojan horse, saying that, you know, fine, he'll defect now, but come election time in 3 years, he'll maybe then defect back and cause fireworks and, I don't know, call reform a bunch of bigots or something.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's definitely interesting. Like I said, we don't see anything quite like this in the U.S. We have had people switch parties from Republican to Democrat, particularly in the Trump era. But even some Democrats in some of those other states, like Mississippi, like Georgia, have actually switched to being Republicans. So we do have some people that have been doing that. But I think most times people, even if they kind of see a shift in their ideology, they tend to like to be within the party. They tend to like to stand up to leadership, whether that's, you know, Trump or the party. But I think you're right. Like, come election time, you know, you look at people like Rand Paul, right? He's, of course, got his libertarian ideological streak. He's constantly critiquing Trump, but he also goes out and says that he's been one of Trump's biggest defenders through impeachments and the likes of that. So, you know, I think these are all very interesting conversations. How much do parties shift? How much do electorates shift? I think, you know, just again comparing it to the Trump elections, people have kind of woken up, right? Like, you look at the people that Trump has attracted through all three elections, through 16, through 20, through 2024. A lot of the times you have people that have not traditionally paid attention to politics, people that have not traditionally voted. And, you know, I kind of wonder if the same thing is happening in the UK with reform. You have people that have just been completely disgusted or put off by politics for years, and now they're seeing politicians that, you know, seem to have, you know, kind of this idea of like the ear of the common man. They seem to understand the plights of the common man, which, you know, whether Westminster or DC, the globalists have taken over and they don't care. So, you know, I think that's an effective rhetoric.
Yeah. And look, just a century ago, we had another famous politician who jumped ship from a losing party to a winning, Winston Churchill. So this is not...
Well, and Ronald Reagan, right?
Not quite a century ago. Yeah, this is not an unknown phenomenon. You know, you have to sometimes make a big move like that.
Yeah, indeed. Much like Formula One drivers. I love Formula One. So it's you know, who's got the best car next year? You know, it's not about the best driver. Who's the best driver can pick the best car for the next season. Interesting. Paul Cox, are you still there down the line? Just a quick word on Andrew Rosendale and the concern maybe about the influx of Tories.
Look, I've been someone who has said I do have a concern that taking from the cohort of people that caused the problem and making them part of the change does kind of undermine the change. However, I've also said I understand the experience is required, and, you know, within politics, people want to vote for people that they believe can work within politics and, by the way, can attack the blob. And but what I mean is, you know, the people working, the civil servants behind the scenes, driving government forward or backward, depending on which way you look at it. Look, I understand this, that just this week, at least 2 of the 3 are good signings. I'm not sure about Zahawi. I think that asks a lot more questions than it answers. But outside of that, I'd like to see it slow down slightly, and I'd like to see them bring in people that are new to politics, fresh blood and change. That's what people are crying out for anyway. Let's bring in people with business experience. Let's bring in people with life experience. Let's bring in people that can actually talk without sounding like they've never spoken to a human being before.
Yeah, applies to a lot of Labour. On Zahawi, I agree with you, fairly underwhelming, but I think I've heard whispers that the reason he was brought in, amongst other things, he's got a great business background, but he has good connections in the Middle East, and particularly what it comes down to is donors, money. I think he brings a lot of donors who would have donated to the Tory party to reform, so I think maybe that would explain things. Paul, thanks very much. Talking of the Middle East, we're going to turn our sights now to Iran, because unconfirmed reports tonight claim Iranian protesters Irfan Sultani, he was the young 26-year-old lad who's been widely pictured on the front pages for around a week or so. He was arrested during nationwide anti-regime demonstrations earlier this month. He was due to be executed, if you remember, on Wednesday last week. He was due to be publicly hanged in a town square in Iran by the regime. There he is, the 26-year-old. We heard nothing of that on Wednesday. It was apparently postponed until Friday, and we heard nothing. The family in Iran heard nothing. Well, unfortunately, some news today suggests that he's been beaten to death while in detention under the Islamist regime there. And again, he's just 26 years old. He was a protester. So a new report from doctors in Iran says that at least 16,500 people have died in addition to that poor lad, and over 300,000 injured. That's insane, 300,000 injured. The government crackdown continues to take place, and the big question now is, when will President Trump, when will America intervene? The figures I just quoted, reported by the Sunday Times, are compiled from 8 major hospitals and 16 emergency departments, and they reveal that most of the victims are believed to be younger than 30. So this is arguably, I mean, I think I'm safe saying this, it is a genocide of Iran's youth who dared to protest the despot regime. The Islamic regime, the Ayatollah, they imposed an internet blackout on the 8th of January, a move seen as an effort to hide the reported killings and the true death toll and prevent images from spreading outside the country. Trump recently urged Iranian demonstrators to keep protesting and threatened military intervention if security forces continue to kill them. And if you remember, President Trump said, keep going, keep protesting, help is on the way, but it's since gone cold. Let's get the take of Harley Lipman, the Middle East and Eastern Europe foreign policy expert. Harley, good morning. Is help on the way from America?
Well, I certainly hope so. Right now, that isn't the case. As everybody knows, Trump has said that he's not going to go forward to attack Iran, which is very unfortunate. But I'll illustrate very quickly the reasons why Trump is probably not going forward at this moment. Reason number one, and it's not in any particular order, is that the countries in that region have strongly urged Trump not to attack Iran, in particular Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israel's Bibi Netanyahu, surprisingly. Why? Because they all fear the retaliatory strikes that Iran threatens to use against those countries if the United States attacks Iran. So Iran is trying to blackmail the countries in that part of the region, and appears to be working. Reason two why Trump pressed the pause button, at least for now, is because the MAGA side of the Republican Party are isolationists. They were very upset that Trump went into Venezuela, and so they don't want Trump to do what they fear, which is an endless war. They're all about regrets with Afghanistan and Iraq, and Trump was elected at least partly on his promise not to have endless wars. Not that this would be one, but that's their big fear. And then reason number three is that regimes like this typically are overthrown when you have millions of people in the streets. You don't have that yet. And when members of the security forces defect, and that hasn't appeared to happen yet. So for those reasons, it appears that President Trump was told, and lastly, I'll add, that even attacking Iran will not be able to overthrow the regime. So, and then he's been told there could be a civil war, there'd be huge carnage and deaths. So for all those reasons, he pressed the pause button. But if I may, I'd like to say why it's a mistake and why I hope and think the United States will correct this and do what's right to liberate the Iranian people.
Yes, go for it. And also, can I ask as well, the death of that young lad, the 26-year-old Irfan Soltani, he was due to be hung. He was beaten to death in custody. I think it will take, all the 16,500 reported deaths are tragic, of course, but I think you kind of need a human face to the bloodshed. And knowing President Trump, or being familiar with him, I think it would take something like this for him to encourage him to kind of take action. I mean, that poor guy, 26-year-old, he's just a kid, beaten to death in Iranian custody. That would be one of his red lines, I would assume.
I would hope so as well. And when you look at this poor guy, and he was obviously beaten and tortured, they've been beating and torturing thousands, tens of thousands of Iranians. They're brutal. They're raping women in prison. They've instructed the security forces to aim for the eyes. There are reports out of hospitals that all these protesters are blind, that they had to take gunshot out of the eye, that it's deliberate. They're trying to intimidate the population. It's just a illegitimate regime that is not really Islamist, that is made up of corrupt leaders who live on the largesse of the people, where over 90% of the people live in poverty. The country's economy is collapsing. The currency of Iran is virtually worthless. People have a hard time getting food, getting electricity, getting water. It's you live under absolutely terrible conditions. So it's just a nightmare for these people. But the reason to overthrow this regime is that Iran has been responsible for all the wars in the region, in the Middle East. If you look at any war, Iran is behind it one way or another. So if you want stability and you want to liberate the Iranian people and be on the right side of history, this is what I hope President Trump is going to pay attention to.
Yep, and Harley as well, they are responsible, Iran, for lots of the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. Also in the UK, the MI5, the domestic intelligence services, said this week that they'd foiled 20 Iranian-linked terror plots in recent years. There are plenty of other plots that I know about. 3 men were accused of travelling to the Israeli embassy in London, accused of blowing it up. I think that's going through court at the moment. So yeah, it's not just Iran that would benefit from the fall of the despot Islamist regime. It's the West, it's Great Britain as well, it's America as well. Harley, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. That's Harley Lipman, the Middle East and Eastern Europe foreign policy expert. Simon and Victoria are with me now. Simon, the Crown Prince, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, was in Washington DC this week. I asked him a question about his plan to take over Iran. He says, I'm ready, I've got a transition team in place, I will be the man to come back to Iran, the Iranian people want me. Do you know much about this guy, Reza Pahlavi?
He was here during the revolution. I think he was studying in California, so he hasn't really lived much of his life in Iran. There are questions about how deep his support is. I mean, obviously right now there are people who would like to have him back as a kind of figurehead, the way King Charles is at the top of a constitutional monarchy, not, the day-to-day president. Yeah. But we don't really know how deep his support is. But frankly, they couldn't do much worse than what they have now. I mean, it's a horrific scene we're seeing every day of people getting killed and tortured. They've run that country into the ground. I mean, it's an oil-rich country that is now an economic disaster. They don't even have enough water in Tehran to run the city. So I hope they can overthrow this regime, but I'm afraid it's going to have to come from the inside.
Victoria, what do you make of this Sunday Times report today? 16,500 dead, 330,000 injured, and including among the dead, that poor guy, the 26-year-old Irfan Soltani.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the reporting, I think, on this has been critical. I know my colleague Galina, I think you've had her on a couple of times. She's been doing, at least on our team, she's been doing some great reporting. She's first-generation Iranian American, and she has contacts on the ground that whenever they do get internet, they'll send her messages on Instagram, and she'll kind of translate them and get them into her reporting. Wow. I just wanted to give a shout out to her because she's doing a great job with this, and I know her voice has been really critical in this in terms of the coverage as well. Okay. But yeah, I think the reporting is really key. again, obviously the government is trying to make sure that you can't get as much information out, but the people I know are still fighting. I've seen some of those messages that she's gotten, and any kind of Western media that they can get to pay attention, they're trying their best.
Yeah, Godspeed to those protesters. They are fighting for the future of their nation and for their children and their grandchildren, and they're paying the ultimate price for it. So Godspeed. Some very quick messages on your say. Graham, you've said, I'm an avid GB News watcher. It's what my telly is for. Thank you, Graham. But I'm not usually up this late. Loving the show. Ben, you've been missed from my usual viewing, I assume in the daytime. I have to say too, Paul Cox is brilliant. I'll do my best to be a regular viewer in the future, Ben. Thank you, Graham. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you for that kind message. And Cassie, you've said Nigel is showing his true colours. Nigel Farage is pivoting as much as slimy Starmer. He's attending the World Economic Forum next week, or this week now from Monday, which he criticised other politicians for doing. It's a no from me. We are going to be talking about that, Casey, in 20 minutes or so. Farage going to Davos this week. Do you remember Keir Starmer saying, or being asked if he preferred Davos or Westminster? He said, well, Davos, of course. But Farage is there this week as well. Mind you, so is President Trump. And one more, Michelle. Hello, Michelle. You said, Ben, good evening. Oliver must watch GB News to have an opinion, and what an arrogant so-and-so. This is the guy I interviewed at the start of the show who was calling for our licence to be revoked, the former Sunday Times guy. Some people are beyond help. You were brilliant, Ben. He had no answers, just his bias. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Right, let's move on to another story. Germany are among the names who are considering this summer's World Cup in North America to be boycotted. They're threatening not to come, with one politician suggesting it's over President Trump's threats against Greenland. Fans are also said to be snubbing the tournament over America's intervention in Venezuela and what they say are controversial human rights policies of President Trump. Among those dissenting voices is Ajamu Baraka, the 2016 US vice presidential candidate, who has said, quote, how can the United States be rewarded with hosting the World Cup with its hands stained with Palestinian blood and an illegal attack on Venezuela? We must not allow these acts to become normalised. Postpone the matches, boycott the United States. But I'm pleased to say Ajamu joins me now, the former vice presidential candidate for the US Green Party and left-wing activist. Good morning, Ajamu. Nice to see you. Thank you for your company. Why should, I think I know what you're going to say, but why should the World Cup be boycotted?
Well, as I said in my tweet, that basically for the U.S. to be allowed the prestige of hosting the World Cup on the heels of its complicity, providing the ability of the Israeli state to carry out a genocide in Gaza, and with the illegal acts that it is involved in, including the kidnapping of the Venezuelan president, its withdrawal from the United Nations, its thumbing its nose up at international law, and the neo-fascist environment that we have in the United States today that are causing many, many nations to hesitate on traveling to the U.S. We have a number of countries that have travel bans already or travel advisories to the U.S. It makes no sense for FIFA to go forward with allowing this state that is actually operating as a rogue state to host these prestigious games, not only the World Cup, but we extend that also to the hosting of the Olympics in 2028. It should be boycotted.
Oh, wow. Wow, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. You mentioned Israel, you mentioned a so-called fascist state, Maduro as well. I mean, let's talk about Maduro and Venezuela. The guy wasn't a president. He rigged elections to stay in power. He was a dictator, and there were Venezuelans dying of starvation on the streets of Caracas. He was also a drug dealer, a narco-terrorist. So, I mean, you've got an issue with what the American administration did with Maduro, have you? Because the Venezuelans seem to like it.
Well, I'm not sure what Venezuelans you may be referring to besides the tiny opposition. Most Venezuelans I know are opposed to any attempt to take them backwards in history, to allow for them to be.
He was a dictator. You must agree he's a despot dictator. People dying on the streets.
Of course not. No more of a dictator than Donald Trump. Oh, no, of course not. No, because basically you have a series. you've had a series of elections in Venezuela. But look, the point is this. Whether or not he was a dictator or not, one, the U.S. and Western European powers have no right to intervene. Secondly, the issue on the table is whether or not the U.S. should be allowed to engage in international lawlessness and host these prestigious World Cup games. That's the issue on the table. Don't you think?
Okay. So well, I think it's a silly idea. Do you know how much it would cost the American economy boycotting the World Cup? I'm sure you've looked into it.
Yes, it would be enormous, and that's one of the motivations why FEMA is hesitating and violating their own human rights. I'm not sure about the exact figure, but I know that the FEMA is geared toward making millions of dollars.
Roughly, what's the figure, Jamu? You must know. You're coming on television saying you want to boycott the World Cup. You must know what damage it will do to your economy. It's not my country, it's your economy. What's the figure, roughly?
But it has no impact on me and my people. Basically, the ones who are making money off the World Cup are, in fact, the big business owners and some of those cities who are trying to cash in on the misery of other people. I have no idea.
Certain amount to your. Sorry to interject. You don't know.
No, I don't. No, not exactly. No, I know it's going to be in the billions if it happens, and that suits me.
I mean, it seems pretty mad to me that you've come forward with a case to boycott the World Cup in your own country, and you don't have any idea about the economic effects it would have on your GDP. It would cost your country, your economy, your people $17 billion by cancelling the World Cup. Do you know how many jobs that would strip people of? How many Americans would that affect with jobs? Any idea?
For me, it's just like the question that came up when we were boycotting South Africa. And the South Africans said, we don't mind what kind of negative impact it may have on us economically. We stand for principle and we support your boycott efforts. Same thing with this issue. We're not going to trade off economic prosperity for the lives of Palestinians and for U.S. lawlessness. It does not matter.
So you care more about the lives of Palestinians thousands of miles away than the lives of 185,000 Americans who are getting jobs and employment from your World Cup. You care more about some Palestinians than 185,000 Americans. Is that what you're saying?
Tomorrow's the official birthday of Dr. King. And I think that we'd be quite safe in saying that Dr. King will make the same kind of analysis of basically the jobs of individuals versus the lives of Palestinians. There's no real argument about which one he will go for.
Well, people, as you saw in the 2008 financial crash, Ajamu, more people died from suicide and from poverty in the wake of the 2008 crash than I think at any period over the past couple of centuries. Poverty and economic turmoil is a direct cause of death, not least through suicide. So when you're coming on national television, you don't know how much boycotting the World Cup would cost your economy, $17 billion. A city like Philadelphia, it would cost them $1 billion. But most importantly, the jobs, the prosperity, the livelihoods of 185,000 Americans. You're saying you don't give a damn about them because you care more about some Palestinians in the Middle East.
I care about human life. Yes, and I will factor that in as the centerpiece of my moral argument that basically the lives of Palestinians, lawlessness, the undermining of international law and our international norms, to me outweighs the potential of jobs that people might have in the United States of America. We can't look. It's immoral for us to take positions other than to center life. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, but you're contradicting yourself. You're saying life and the sanctity of life is important. Well, my friend, you've got lives on the line here in America. People want to work, so you're ignoring those. What you're saying is word salad, if I'm being quite frank to you.
Jobs and having a job and losing one life, I think is quite different. So basically, again, for us, it is the lawlessness, the rogue state status of the United States of America that concerns us the most. We say boycott the U.S., move the games, not only the World Cup, but also the Olympics. We can't normalize genocide. We just can't do it. We have to, as collective humanity, we have to draw certain lines.
Okay, I understand you. Just finally, last question. You called President Trump a fascist. You know the definition of fascism?
Yes. the terroristic coordination between the corporate state and the state. Yes. And basically the elements, the most militant elements of the working class have lined up behind Donald Trump, basically to use the only weapon they seem to have open to them to try to maintain U.S. hegemony, and that's force and violence. So yes, he's a neo-fascist.
Well, one of the main proponents of the definitions of fascism is a one-party state, which you don't have that here. So I think it's a stretch
we have
to
it in the
call
U.S.
this country run by a fascist.
We have a one-party state in the U.S.
You've got a one-party
dictatorship
state in the U.S.
Of course, we have two wings of the same party, the same capitalist party. Of course.
Okay, you're anti-capitalist.
We have a dictatorship of capital.
Are you a communist,
my friend? Yes, I am. Yes. Hardcore.
Okay, got it. I was going to hardcore commie. All right, great. Well, no surprise that you had an issue with Maduro being dragged from his bed at 3 in the morning then. But the guy is a narco-terrorist dictator who is... And also, I have to say, before I let you go, my friend,
yes.
Look, I really respect you coming on, but I will say you are a massive flaming hypocrite. You talk about the sanctity of life of Palestinians, yet you say we shouldn't have taken out Maduro, who is responsible for killing tens of thousands of Venezuelans. You have things all mixed up in your head, my friend. I think you're a massive hypocrite.
my friend. There's no evidence for some 10,000 people being murdered by the government in Venezuela. That's all complete and utter nonsense.
With Venezuelans starving on the street, he is responsible for thousands of deaths.
Oh, come on. If that was the case,
if you can't see that Maduro is responsible for the deaths of Venezuelans, I don't know what we're doing here.
Well, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, we have a different perspective on life and these specific situations in places like Venezuela.
All right. Respect to you, Ajamu. Thanks for coming on, and I'd say see you at the World Cup, but I probably won't. So we'll catch up soon. Thanks, Ajamu Baraka. gbnews.com/yoursay. Simon, I mean, my head's spinning a bit. I think I need a drink. So cares more. I don't know. What do you make of that? I just don't know what to say.
Well, I mean, he's consistent. I mean, he's very polite and expresses his views, but they are views of a far-left socialist. If you asked him about Cuba, he would have told you that the Castro regime was the best thing that ever happened to the island, and they live in paradise, and they have perfect medical care, even though they're driving cars from the 1950s. They have no coffee in the coffee shops and no booze in the bars, and the economy is falling apart. So, if you have an ideology, a lot of people with his background and from his father was a famous politician, if I remember right, in the 60s, ended up in Cuba as exiles. Some of them who'd committed crimes in the United States, like Angela Davis and Shada Shakur. So, it's a consistent philosophy. It's definitely not one I agree with.
I mean, it's consistent, and it's also dangerous. These commies, I'll be polite to them, but they are very dangerous people, Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely no fan of communism. I was just talking about the greatness of capitalism and free markets in the earlier segment. But I will actually do something unconventional. I actually learned something from that segment. I actually wasn't aware that there was other countries that had travel bans on the U.S. So I looked up this list. It's from Condé Nast Traveler. Apparently one of those countries is the U.K. But the reasoning here, I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know this until just a couple minutes ago. But so the U.K. had an issue with the U.S. saying that the authorities in the U.S. set and enforce their entry rules. That was updated last March to say that the rules are enforced strictly. And then in June, that was updated to say that it's a very general advisory. Do your homework, and if you aren't sure, check with the U.S. Embassy. So the UK, at least according to Condé Nast Traveler in this article I pulled up from last summer, June of 2025, the UK had an issue with the U.S. enforcing their own borders. To me, that is that's interesting. I think the UK should be concerned about their own borders and enforcing their own borders instead of policing the U.S. for enforcing our own borders. So, I learned something new there.
Let me let you into a little secret, Victoria, and American viewers. Paul Cox, the UK doesn't have borders. There is no such word as borders in the English dictionary, Paul Cox.
Who said that, Ben?
Well, it's just a state of affairs, isn't it?
Sorry,
legal migration through the...
Oh, right, sorry, I thought this was breaking news, someone was saying that. Look, of course there are borders. There should absolutely be borders. And the UK has got this massive great border called the sea. It stops people getting in, unless they've got a rubber dinghy and they're coming from France, of course. But we do need borders. Of course we need borders. The same reason you've got a lock on your house. The same reason you've got a fence around your garden. You want to control who can come in and who can't come out of your sanctity. It's just so important. I mean, that previous guy, by the way.
What do you make of the boycott the World Cup brigade?
Nutters, absolute nutters. I mean, that guy. I mean, I'm always surprised when people say I'm a communist, I'm a hardcore communist. I mean, that sort of stuff is mad to me. I mean, the pure duplicity between supporting of Palestine and not supporting in Iran is everything you need to know about these people. And by the way, football is greater than politics. You'd have to be drunk to think the Germans wouldn't be in the World Cup. The Germans will be at the World Cup. Their towel will be there long before they will. And they will be there, Ben. Let me tell you that. They will be there.
OK, I've got some messages on your say. Where have we got? Candace says... the guy was spot on, Ajamu. You embarrassed yourself, Ben. That guy was a wonderful human being. And when you've grown up, Ben, watch the interview back. I'm embarrassed for you. Somebody else said, wow, Ben, that last interview, he was a proper lefty nut job. I'm speechless. Anyway, we'll move on. There's some stories. There's some stories coming into the newsroom over this weekend. Actually, let's look at the front page of the Telegraph before we move on. The front page of the Telegraph tomorrow, or later today, Monday, reads: Europe threatens to strike back over Greenland. I think we can get that up. The Times says PM warns of downward spiral in US tariffs row. The Express fears Trump's tariffs threat will rip NATO apart. The Eye goes with trade war looms with America as the UK and EU unite against Trump's Greenland threat. The Sun, Jesse love split after twins agony. The Independent, Europe delivers a warning to Trump after tariffs threat. And Metro, reclaiming the tea break. What's this Metro story about? Let's have a look. Where is the Metro? Reclaiming the tea break. It says, tea breaks are becoming a thing of the past for millions of workers, with half of us only leaving our desks to go to the loo. Oh no, I had a cup of tea today, first time in a while. And the Mail, NATO now heading for disaster in Trump row. And The Guardian, EU weighs up €93 billion retaliation for Trump's Greenland blackmail. The Mirror, Trump's Greenland madness. And yeah, that's about it. Paul, should we take a look at a couple of stories that have come in? One is that Nigel Farage, despite in yesteryear having a go at politicians for attending Davos and the World Economic Forum. Anyway, long story short, he'll be at Davos next week. President Trump will be there as well, but he's been getting, Farage, a lot of stick over this weekend for attending. What's your take on Nigel Farage attending the World Economic Forum?
Well, my assumption is the reason he's attending is because Donald Trump is attending, and it's an opportunity probably to meet Donald Trump. It's also an opposition. It's also a chance, much in the same way as he did in the EU Parliament. He was a member of that, and he used to attend and read in the Riot Act twice a month. He might be going there to speak out about Davos, and perhaps that's needed as well. I'd be very surprised if he was there to support Davos in any way. I think Davos is the epicentre of sort of global geopolitics, and it's for my money, it's bad and evil. It's not helping anyone whatsoever. I'd hate to think that Nigel Farage was there for any supporting reasons, Ben.
Simon, do you know much about Davos and the WF? Is the concern over the controversy over Davos warranted?
Look, I mean, sometimes you got to go where the talk is, where the action is. I mean, Davos man has this reputation of being, you know, the sort of snooty European elites that want us all to own nothing and you know, be happy. But, you know, you can't boycott everything. This is why the whole boycott of the World Cup and the Olympics is such a dumb idea. You got to go, you got to be in it, you got to play, and you got to be where the people are.
Victoria, have you been to Davos?
I have not. It seems like a lovely city, but, you know, I think Simon's right. Like, you have to go where these chats are held. You know, I think just kind of taking it to a DC perspective, right? Like, you go to events in DC, you know, particularly as a journalist, even with people that you might think have some crazy ideas, because, you know, you have to tell people about what's happening there. You have to be a part of these conversations if you're a politician, or you have to know what these backroom conversations are happening and what is being discussed. And, you know, I also think that it's important, particularly now, because a lot of the European continent. Of course, we talked earlier about even some of Trump's allies like Maloney and other individuals are speaking out against what he's doing. And so, you know, I think the fact that he's willing to go there, he's not going to tell us that he's going to be there listening. I'm sure he'll be doing a lot of talking, but I think, you know, his advisors and those close to him will be doing some listening. We'll be doing some backroom wheeling and dealing. And, you know, in DC, we talk about this idea of like the smoke-filled cigar back rooms, and that's kind of where your lobbying and things like that are done. And I'm sure there's a Davos equivalent of that. You know, maybe it's the after Davos après-ski sauna or whatever it may be up there. But
cool. I love a sauna.
I think you got to participate.
Don't tempt me, I love a sauna. Right, let's move on. Breaking story from the Telegraph. This is a big one, actually, Paul Cox. Not sure if you've seen. The Trump administration is reportedly considering offering asylum to British Jews. That's amid growing concern over rising anti-Semitism in the UK. Donald Trump's personal lawyer, a chap called Robert Garson, says he's been in talks with the US State Department, claiming Britain is, quote, no longer a safe place for Jews. In an interview with The Telegraph that's in the paper today on Monday, he pointed to Islamist attacks, including the Manchester synagogue incident, which was perpetrated by a guy called Jihadi, still an absolute joke, and the surge in anti-Jewish hatred since October the 7th. He said that he sees no future for Jews in the UK, and Mr Garson laid much of the blame on the door of, guess who, Sir Keir Starmer, for allowing anti-Semitism to flourish, and he raised the idea of offering the US as a safe haven to British Jews. The Prime Minister has previously promised to do everything in his power to protect Jewish people in Britain, and that the UK must defeat anti-Semitic hate. Paul, this is astounding. The US could offer asylum to British Jews because it's no longer safe for them.
Yeah, absolutely astounding. And do you know what? There are, anecdotally and from my personal experience, there are Jewish people, particularly in London, that are seriously considering leaving the country because they no longer feel safe here. And if Donald Trump's US is offering asylum, I can genuinely see Jewish people, particularly in London and some of the bigger cities, taking him up on that offer. We have a Prime Minister here who's presiding over a Labour Party that has proven itself to be anti-Semitic over the years. It says it's trying to flush it out. It quite clearly isn't. A lot of the pro-Palestinian marches and pro-Palestinian sentiment is fueled by anti-Semitism. People want to detach Israel from Judaism. It's impossible. You know, 90-odd% of Jews around the world support Israel in one way or another. They are intrinsically linked. You cannot be one without the other, I do not believe. And Jewish people have become the sort of fashionable people that you can aim hate at. And quite astoundingly, it's been able to continue. We've seen it throughout huge institutions on this side of the pond, particularly within the BBC. People seem very comfortable to be anti-Semitic and then pretend they don't understand what anti-Semitism means.
Yeah. Simon, does this surprise you?
No, I mean, look, I've seen asylum claims from countries that I've lived in that are perfectly safe, like India and Ghana and Fiji, and they get approved sometimes, depending on who the judge is. But the truth is that life for Jewish people since I left 30 years ago in the United Kingdom is less safe. It's just simply not the same country. The environment, the government is less protective. We have two-tier, I think, policing. Freedom of speech is not enforced equally. And if I were a prosperous middle-class person and I had the option to go to Israel or the United States, I might think seriously about it. And frankly, we'd do very well by taking them in.
Is the US a safe place for Jews, Victoria?
Well, I was going to say, I would love to see these people come here, but I also do think that some of our leftists are going the same way that a lot of the leftists in the UK are. We've had a rise in anti-Semitism here in the US as well. Again, I've spoken just on this program that I think that on the right particularly, we need to do an even better job stamping it out than we do.
Well, Trump is kicking out those on visas. Sorry to interrupt. Those on visas at university campuses, on student visas, who are going around calling for globalised the Intifada. He's just kicking them out, isn't he? He's sticking to his word.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's a move in the right direction. But I do think that even within the Republican Party or the conservative movement, at least some people that call themselves conservatives are absorbing some, again, not even anti-Israel, but just straight up anti-Semitic viewpoints. Really, I think, taking things out of a Nazi 1930s playbook. And, I wish they weren't. And again, I think we need to do a stronger job of talking about it here in the U.S., of really pushing it to the fringes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I think it's safer than in the UK for now, but I hope it doesn't get worse, but I could very well see it getting worse if, you know, more leftists get into power and kind of go on this downward spiral.
Okay, one more very quick story. The NHS is facing serious questions tonight after new guidance tells midwives to discuss the so-called benefits, Paul Cox, of cousin marriage, first cousin marriage. The document claims 85 to 90% of cousin couples do not have affected children of, I guess, disabilities, and warns staff that close relative marriage is often stigmatised in England, adding claims that the associated genetic risks have been exaggerated. While admitting there are higher risks of congenital disease, the guidance says these should be balanced against the potential benefits of the practice. And the NHS has said in a statement, yeah, we absolutely recognise the genetic risks of first cousin relationships, so on and so on. We offer guidance and advice, and so people can make informed decisions. Really, Paul?
Well, it should be discouraged, Ben, if you're asking my view. I mean, the idea that we're having a discussion in 2026 about the benefits, potentially, of cousin marriage, first cousin marriage as well. I mean, you could argue that the British royal family for generations had cousin marriage, and you can see some paintings from sort of 300 or 400 years ago where they all look like they are disfigured as a result. It is not good. There is no benefit. You should not date your cousin. You definitely shouldn't marry your cousin, and you 100% should never have children with your cousin. It's not good. It's not good. Look around. There are other people, would be my advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a big world, isn't it, Simon? And why'd you have to date your cousin?
I mean, look, a tiny percentage of the population is responsible for like a third of the birth defects in the UK. This is a horrible thing they're doing to their own children, and in my opinion, it should be banned. We now know how dangerous it is.
Victoria?
I think that with as globalized as the world is today, you can find a spouse anywhere in the world. And so, yeah, you should look a little bit further than your own backyard.
Yeah, I don't know why the NHS is promoting this. It's if there's a small risk of congenital diseases, and we've seen what Simon just mentioned. There are communities in the UK who are responsible for the majority of disabled kids. And do you know what? I'll say it. They keep pumping them out and pumping them out. Disabled kids. It's awful. It's not right. Finally, last very quick story. I've got 30 seconds. Do you believe in aliens? Paul, very quickly.
Yes.
95% of people do. Simon, do you?
100%.
It's Victoria?
Other life forms, yeah, something else has got to be out there.
Yeah, I do as well. There's a new story in the papers today. Apparently 95% of Brits think and agree there are aliens, there is life on other planets. I do as well. I don't think it's... There you go, there's one in the football crowd. I think it's... I've read somewhere it's mathematically impossible that there isn't life elsewhere in the universe. And, yeah, I think we've seen some of them on the show tonight. Not saying anything, not casting aspersions, but you can probably guess who I think maybe not of this world. There's a couple of them. Guys, thank you for your company tonight. Simon, appreciate it. Victoria, Paul, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. And viewers and listeners back home, thank you so much. That's me done for the weekend. Bev Turner's back with you tomorrow. I am trying to organise a trip somewhere special next week. Guesses on a postcard. For now, I'll see you in a couple of days. Bev's with you tomorrow, as I said. Sweet dreams, good night, have a good week, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ra.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Another cloudy day to come, some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, but there will be some sunshine around too, and temperatures near average but mild in the south once more. So we have two bands of weather bringing rain, so cloud and rain across Northern Ireland, western Scotland this morning, and another one affecting much of England and Wales, giving some low cloud, misty, murky conditions through the day, outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But in between these, there is some sunnier breaks, parts of Scotland, western fringes of England and Wales, and perhaps even southeast England seeing some sunnier breaks too, and temperatures generally similar to recent days between 7 and 9 degrees. Into the evening time, those weather bands not really going very far. So central parts of Scotland, a dry end to the day, but turning quite chilly under clear skies. To the east and west, rather cloudy with some patchy rain, and those bands of cloud and rain stretching south into parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, so a cloudy end to the day here. Much of the rest of England and Wales also cloudy, rain and drizzle, hill fog in places, but a few cloud breaks from time to time through the evening. And very little changes overnight as well. We may start to see the bands of cloud pushing a little further north and eastwards as we go through the night, allowing some clearer spells towards parts of Wales and the West Country ahead of the next weather system, which starts to come in for Tuesday. So temperatures under the cloud holding up 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees. Any clearer spells a little lower, but most of us frost-free to start Tuesday. The weather systems move out the way into the North Sea as we go through Tuesday morning, allowing it to become a little dry and brighter for a time. But another weather system bringing cloud and rain and stronger winds to Northern Ireland, western fringes of southwest England and Wales as we move through into the afternoon. Elsewhere, generally dry, a little breezy, but some sunnier spells and temperatures once more up to around 10 or 11 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News,